What's happening, guys? Happy Wednesday to the live streamers and happy Thursday to the podcast listeners. And welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On today's show, we're talking college football. We got a couple of special guests that are going to join me here in just a minute. But let me introduce the guest that would never leave. You know him better as my co-host. He is, in fact, the man of the hour and the man with the power. Jerry, buddy, what's going on?
Nothing. I'm enjoying my life. You would be luckier if I did leave, but you are not that lucky. It is wonderful to see you. It is another wonderful week of football where I usually just end up disappointed because my players don't score points. Mark Andrews, I am looking at you, buddy.
It was a super week of disappointments. We're going to deviate a little from our normal show format. Like I said, we have some guests. You'll get to meet those guys here in just a couple of minutes. We're going to be talking college football, and we'll talk a little bit about the class of 2025. Mix it up. You know, we could go over the same things that we go over every single week, or we could introduce you guys to some great new podcasters with a great new podcast. We'll bring them on in just a minute. But, Jerry, we're going to do this a little bit different. We're going to do good people, bad tweets right now.
Cool.
Right now. Now, this is one that you sent to me.
Yeah.
And this is from Elite Drafters, at Elite_Drafters. And Elite Drafters, person, place, or thing, said, my current thoughts, 2025 class, 5 Elite RB1s, 5 Elite wide receiver 1s, 1 Elite tight end 1, 1 Elite QB 1.
So
what about this made you...
round is elite, is what we're saying.
I'll be honest.
I can create the entire structure of my dynasty league with one draft class. That person is either new to this game and does not realize the pain that comes with scouting these players and the absolute disappointment that they will offer you in fantasy production, or he's a poopy pants liar. No other way around it.
I'm going to give again, Elite Drafters, I'm going to give them a credit for at least one elite quarterback. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be pretty good, especially for fantasy points. Like we're seeing it right now with Jaden Daniels. Guy's got wheels, not afraid to use them. Looks really good in the passing game. That's probably some crow I'm going to have to eat next week as it relates to Jaden Daniels. But no. First of all, I don't think from a dynasty standpoint, I don't think there are 5 elite running backs, period. Period. Like right now. I mean, like from a dynasty standpoint, who's elite? Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, upward, inflection, question mark, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson. Now, I know people like Saquon, but for dynasty, he's like 27, 28. Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, they're 28, 29. They're not elite for dynasty. But you tell me in the entire NFL, we're going to double the number of elite running backs and then wide receivers. I would maybe you have, so realistically, tight ends are a crapshoot.
Yeah,
we know that. We know that
he might be right on that, but who knows? I mean, if you have 600 yards in a season, you're an elite tight end.
We'll ask Mark and Andy here in just a second. But I agree with one. And then the wide receivers, I know there's the kid from Arizona who's killing it. Obviously, Travis Hunter. I've actually heard people say that he should go to the NFL as a corner and then just, run some wide receiver work here or there. All in all, not the most egregious, but I thought it was a really good people, bad tweets to talk about, given that we're going to talk college ball with our guests. But before we go to our guests, we always have to end good people, bad tweets with who, Jerry?
Who we doing?
Dana White. It's always Dana White.
Federal prison. Federal fucking prison. If you're that fucking stupid and somebody else wants to do it, knock yourself out. There's not enough money in it.
All right, and we are back with our guests, and they host a new podcast, and it is called The Saturday Sensei. And I went over this like 3 times because I didn't want to butcher it in the intro. And the hosts of The Saturday Sensei are Mr. Andy Penca and his co-host, Mark Cuccolo. Mark, I hope I pronounced that correctly, but gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us today, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having us on the show. We're glad to be here.
Yeah, excited.
Now, we're all excited for the NFL season. We're at the end of the first quarter. Now, I can, both these guys are in business. They know all about Q1. We're wrapping up or coming to the conclusion of Q1 in the NFL season, but you guys really talk a lot of college ball. So, Mark, I'll start with you. Tell me a little bit about the show, the Saturday Sensei, and for you listening or watching, there are going to be links in this show episode on both YouTube and the podcast. I'm going to put it at the very tippy top. You don't have to go hunting and pecking for it. It'll be right there. Give these guys a follow. Check out their show. But Mark, please, in your words, tell us about the Saturday Sensei.
Well, really, it was an idea that was based off of Andy and I bantering back and forth throughout the college football series on texts and in work to really talk about our passion and really give us a forum to really express ourselves and have fun and give listeners an entertaining time. And it's been great for us. We do weekly sessions where we pick the week's games. We talk about what's happening in college football, what's going on, and we do a session called Hot Topics. We do something called The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Andy came up with a great thing called The Fugly, which I'm sure Jerry could appreciate. And
Because I got to look at Randy all the time.
Probably had a few of those in his day.
Right. And those things are things that we banter about back and forth. And I think it's quite entertaining. I mean, for me, this is just a love of the game and of something that I've done since 1992. I was originally at the draft at Radio City with a friend of mine, and we'd go and make it a annual pilgrimage, and then we'd sit at home and have draft parties, and we'd understand with friends, how many wide receivers in the first round, how many quarterbacks in the top 10, how many offensive tackles taken in the SEC, because we had so much knowledge and wisdom of what was going on. And meeting Andy and rejuvenating this part of my life has been incredible.
So you're a degenerate, just like us. You love degenerate.
A lifer. And his co-host Andy, what was your what brought you to this podcasting world?
Well, as Mark said, he and I guess found each other at work, and I was in the fall and started talking about college football. And from there, for the last, I think 2 or 3 years, just every weekend, he'd send over 10, 12 different games, and we'd pick them on text, and then we'd talk trash all weekend and go back and forth. And at the end of last season, I just threw out the idea of, hey, we ought to give people a window and an ear into our BS and our passion that we take to college football. So that's kind of how we got it started. And it's, two old dudes that are kind of figuring it out as we go. So it's been a lot of fun so far.
I'll be honest. Those are the best podcasts, right, Jerry?
Yeah,
it's just two friends talking football. And it's like a conversation you're inviting the listeners to be a part of.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And with Mark said, we've got a show sheet and all that, but we stick somewhat to it, but we're just talking college football, all things college football. And we're not picking lines. We're not giving people odds. And we choose what we want to talk about. So it's been good.
Randy realized a long time ago that I don't read the show sheets, so he just stopped making them.
Jerry, I would think after 7 years you'd stop stepping on my jokes, but yet here we are. I was getting ready
Randy
to say.
told me he wasn't sure you could read, Jerry. So
here's the funny thing: Jerry is working on is it your doctorate in history? Masters. Your master's in history. He in history from
what era?
My master's is going to be in ancient history. My research has been in medieval history up to this point.
Oh, interesting. Very cool.
Nice.
So funny story about Jerry. When he graduated from Michigan State, in his graduating class, like the school he was in, how far were you from Jaden Reed of the Green Bay Packers?
He was the person in front of me that walked across the stage. It was him, then it was me. Believe it or not, he actually got a louder roar in the Breslin Center than I did.
Really?
Pretty
That's
upset.
Surprising. That's surprising. Shocks me.
Well, it doesn't me, but Jerry's he's pretty famous in dynasty circles. But I want to spend a few minutes with Mark because he's got a heart out to take care of some family stuff, and as a sports dad, I can commiserate with him. So, Mark, what's your favorite part of the Saturday Sensei? Like when you guys do, I'm sure you guys have segments and things that you do. What's your favorite part, and what would you want our listeners, if those that are looking for a college-based new podcast, what would you tell them to tune in for?
I think the highlight of the show is us picking the games of the week and really giving the listeners some insight into our passions. And as you can see, I'm a passionate college football fan, and I use my picks on what I see, what I feel, and what I'm passionate about. And Andy, the reason why the relationship in the show works is the exact opposite. He's all about facts and data, and he's always bringing up these certain things that are going on, and I don't want to hear what he has to say because I have two eyes.
Yeah.
I have a feel for it.
Right.
I know the background, and it's a dichotomy that kind of works, and I'm hoping is entertaining to the listeners as it is for Andy and I to have some fun together.
Randy, you want to ask Mark what the head-to-head record is so far this year after 4 weeks?
Head-to-head record after 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Who's the leader in the clubhouse currently?
I think right now the Sensei is winning by 5 games. Is that
Wow.
correct, Andy?
Facts and data don't lie.
It's well, that was what I was getting ready to say. So in Dynasty Fantasy Football, which is what we do, and Jerry, you can co-sign on this if you'd like. Every spring, as we are evaluating and breaking down these rookies, you have the tape guy, the I have two eyes guy, and you have the data analytics guy. It's like the combine's a 4.40. He jumps 36 inches. His broad jump is this. And I think having that conflicting opinion actually works because if you want to listen to an all data analytics podcast, they're out there. If you want to listen to an all tape film podcast, they're out there. So Andy, tell me about the data and your favorite parts of the show.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I told Mark we taped last night. So a few things about the show. We typically drop new episodes. If I can get it done Tuesday night, if not Wednesday. So typically midweek it drops weekly. But it's an oasis for me, man, every week. And I really look forward to it. And, I follow college football as close as I possibly can, being a husband, a father of 2. And like you, Randy, mentioned, kids that have been incredibly busy. Now they're off to college. But, there's only so much you can watch from time to time. But now I've got more time to do that. And I just enjoy coming together to talk about the game. And I really, in the preparation and watching highlight clips and just kind of getting prepared to talk to Mark, I love it. I mean, it's just, there's so much content there. And I think Mark's probably being a bit too, putting the propeller hat on me a little too tightly. I watch a lot of games. And so I tend to, a lot of my picks are in the season. I make a lot of my picks based on what I see on the TV or in highlights, right? And, I think you can quote the stats and look at the stats, but there is something about watching how a team interacts and just the presence they have on the field. And great example is, you could look at the stats in the ranking and, Tennessee was ranked 6th going into that game against Oklahoma this weekend. I watched most of that game, and they deserve every right to be number 6 in the country. I mean, both sides of the ball, and the defensive side of the ball. I was texting my brother and sister and my cousin. And my cousin's a former NFL guy. We'll have to talk about that at some point. But I was just blown away by the speed and the physicality that they were just bringing to the ball. And so, that's stuff you're just not going to pick up in a stat sheet or a column. So to me, the hour spent is talking about something I love. And that's probably the best part about it. With a guy that most of the time I can stand, sometimes he ticks me off. But
well, we're going to get him. We're going to get him being Mark. We're going to get Mark out of here. But Mark, we're going to give you a homework assignment. Okay, so we're going to get you to come back on in February. You can bring Andy if you want, but we're going to get you to come back on in February, and we're going to talk in depth about this upcoming draft eligible list of skill position guys. We'll talk some QBs, some running backs, some wide receivers. we'll get your two eyes view. How does that sound?
That's awesome. Andy and I will be ready, and we'll be really, really excited to do that with you. Appreciate you having me on today.
All right. Well, we're going to go to our commercial break, and we'll be back with Andy, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the college football season and some of the players we'll be drafting next summer.
Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add Superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from PlayerProfiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side, prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it.
All right, there it is. That is the Dynasty Dominator. Check that out if you're looking for a hand with your Dynasty lineup. So now it's just me, Jerry, and Andy. Andy, you control the narrative from this point going forward.
That's right.
Mark has zero rebuttal at this point. Now, you and have you used the excuse yet with your significant other and family? It's like, look, I'm doing a podcast. I have to sit here and watch every single game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I act like I'm getting paid $1 million a year to do this, man.
That's the dream. I would love to be the Joe Rogan of Dynasty.
But I don't need to get paid. I enjoy doing it. But sometimes, that excuse gets pulled out.
It's a good excuse to have. So you've watched a lot of games. Now, you mentioned the Tennessee game last week. What's been your favorite game to watch season to date? Out of everything that you've watched, even though in week 0, but 0 through 4, what's been the best game you've watched so far?
Yeah, I got to tell you, man. And again, there's a little bias when you watch a game in person versus on TV. Navy's win over Memphis this past weekend, which is where I'm at this week. I'm out in Annapolis. But you want to talk about an electric environment and just back and forth and the way that game finished. That's probably one of the most exciting games I've seen on TV or in person, right, over the years. But that certainly takes the cake. And then being that my college team is the team from out west, the real USC, not the one on the East Coast. So I have a special place in my heart for the Irish. And 2 weeks ago when the Huskies took them down, that probably ranks up in there as one of the best games of the season as well, too. So.
Okay. Jerry, what's been your favorite game to date?
Certainly not watching Michigan State at any point.
It's a tough watch.
Man.
Yeah, they throw too many interceptions for the love of all that is good. Honestly, the Oregon-Boise State game was sort of – I'm usually at work on Saturday, so I usually save all of my football watching for Sundays. But no, that game was awesome. I mean, they had kick return for a touchdown late in the game, a punt return for a touchdown. The running back for Boise, Ashton Genty, is awesome.
Legit.
And
He's
Randy
legit.
and I are going to be talking about him all off season, I'm sure. So that was a fun game. Now, also, Oregon's in the Big Ten now, so I'm rooting for them to lose because we do not have SEC unity in the Big Ten. We root for every other program to lose every single game. So I was sad to see that Boise State didn't pull it out, but that was a fun game to watch.
And there can only be one team that wears green, right?
Obviously.
Michigan State has that
The real
corner.
green.
Now,
The real green.
now, it's funny you mentioned Ashton Genty. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if I am either. If I
Yeah,
butcher
you
any
are.
of these
That's
names,
That's correct.
He is listed as the top running back in this class per Tankathon. They have him
Really?
as the 19th best prospect on the board overall. So we're going to talk more about that, but I want to stick to QBs. We'll start with a couple of QB questions for you, Andy, because you've watched a lot of games.
Yeah.
I think it goes without saying that Shedeur Sanders, especially given the bloodline, is going to be a pretty good, at least for fantasy football quarterback. Real NFL, we'll see.
Yeah.
But are there any other quarterbacks that you've seen or that you've observed in the college game that you think could make a difference at the next level?
Yeah, I think the two you got to put on that list. And statistically speaking, again, going to Mark's stereotype and categorization of me, but statistically speaking, you got to look at Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, right? He's leading the nation right now in passing, over 1,500 yards in passing. He's got the top rated QB rating. I think it's just above 219. He's averaging 423 a game, right? So how you don't get him in the conversation would be beyond me. And then, the other guy that I think, I was just looking at, I looked at, kind of some of the topics we were going to talk about. So I was just looking through all, kind of the list of QBs for the year. And just physically, which is really interesting, but, there weren't a lot of these QBs in the top are all, and maybe this is just the way the bloodline is going and the profile for an NFL quarterback, but they're all 6 foot to 6'2". You don't see a lot of Josh Allens in the mix. But the guy you got to put in there who is 6'2", 200 something, Cam Wharton, right? I mean, he clearly is. And the interesting thing about him, and folks that don't follow the college game closely may not know, but he was at Washington State last year and was every bit as good as he is now. And it's the fact that he was just playing in the upper northwest corner late nights, I don't think got the love that he's getting now. And now that he's down at the U and they are kind of back to their old ways, he's getting the attention he deserves. So I think Dart, Ward, and Sanders, you got to put certainly touch in potentially first round, if not early second, I would think.
All right. I was going to let Jerry ask a question, but the chat actually has a question, and the chat overrules Jerry. First of all, we want to give a shout out to Best Ball on Call in the YouTube chat. He said he subscribed, or she, Best Ball on Call is not necessarily gender specific, subbed to the Saturday Sensei YouTube channel. So Best Ball, good on you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And then earlier in the chat, Jacoby wanted to know, where do you have Jalen Milroe amongst the quarterbacks that you've seen so far? Because he's going to be popular. Alabama.
Yeah.
A lot of people scout the helmet. What are your thoughts on Milroe? And is there like someone in the NFL maybe you see a comparison, because he's 6'2", 220?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll find out a lot this weekend when they play Georgia. They got tested, and I think just on Bama in general, we'll see what happens this weekend. I think, personally, and from our show, I won't give it away. It's our kind of big. Mark didn't talk about our weekly T-shirt pick of the week, but you'll have to subscribe and watch, and you'll know what I'm talking about. So I won't give the game away. But at the beginning of the fourth quarter against USF, if you guys watched any of the highlights or the game, I think the light switch went off for Bama, because I think they were like, oh, you know what? And it was tie ball game, and they ended up winning that game 42-14, I think. So I think for Milroe, I don't know if he's been thoroughly tested yet. I put him in. And again, not from a skill standpoint and saying he's going to turn out the same way, but Justin Fields, the category athletic quarterback, not as big as, I don't think he's as big as Richardson. Maybe Richardson's slightly bigger than him weight wise, but that category of an athletic quarterback, I'm not so sure yet about his accuracy. I think that's going to get, I think you can get away with a lot in the college game, but I think quickly when you go to the next level, any level of sloppiness in the passing game is quickly discovered and exposed. So that would be my big question on him, I think.
All right. Well, Jerry, do you have any questions about QBs? Because I have one more, but I want to let you get a word in edgewise here. All right, Jerry, thanks for participating. Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there any sneaky guys? Any guys that maybe they're not getting a ton of press that you're liking?
Yeah, I would say in kind of that top four is the QB out of TCU, Josh Hoover, his kid's name. He's got over 1,400 yards passing thus far, and again fits the typical profile I talk about. He's 6'2", 218 or 220, but he's been slinging the ball pretty well. And again, a lot of these guys, I think the combine shows some or workouts, but I think it's been really interesting the last several years of watching quarterbacks that have excelled at the college level and then or have not excelled. To your point, Jerry, have been a bit of a sleeper. And, they get to the next level and the game is so different that some of their advantages on the field at the college level are just neutralized. Most specifically is speed, right? It's a whole nother level at the NFL game. And I think for quarterbacks that are able to skirt the pocket and use their legs in college, that becomes much less of a weapon at the top level. But Josh Hoover
Cough,
is probably
Caleb
who I'd
Williams.
put on. What's that?
I said cough, Caleb Williams.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's had an interesting run the first 3 games of his career.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched any of that game on Sunday against the Colts. I'm glad to see the Colts pulled it out, but my gosh, it was a little bit ugly to watch, man. Both sides.
We do a segment we call for Dynasty Fantasy Football Panic or Patience. And last week I told people to have a little bit of patience around Anthony Richardson and Pittman, and feel free to panic, but we'll get into that more next week. One last QB, kind of two.
Yeah.
I just want to throw this out there. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and they actually mentioned Jackson Dart, no pun intended, as a dart throw to be the 101 overall in the NFL draft this coming year.
Yeah.
And I know, I used to do the gambling show here on Player Profiler, but he's a good guy to maybe get like a small, like what we call a pizza wager, like whatever your favorite pizza costs, 10, 15, 20 bucks.
Yeah.
Like it's worth a futures bet on Jackson Dart to win the Heisman. And I didn't think that was a bad call, but we talked about Jalen Milroe. He's going to be playing Georgia this weekend, and they've got a quarterback that per tankathon, it's just a nice little place to have stack rankings. They actually have Beck as the number 1 QB in the class. What are your thoughts on Beck? And then, unless it gives something away from this week's episode, who do you have Bama versus Georgia?
Well, I'll give my pick, but Mark is he's the t-shirt pick guy of the week, so you guys can watch and get the excitement from him. But I think I don't know if anybody again who was watching, or the two of you, if you watched the Kentucky game, I was not, and maybe Kentucky played a bit, punched a bit above their weight on the defensive side of the ball in that game, but I was not impressed. Not that it was bad, but to see that game and the offensive performance and the lack of command, to say he's the top quarterback in that class, that game for me would put that in question mark. Still, is going to be probably at the next level, and will get selected relatively high, but I just didn't see the dominance that you would expect when you're talking about a QB to be taken first in the NFL draft.
Yeah,
and as far as
his
the game,
stats,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say his stats aren't. I mean, he has half the passing yards, not even half of Jackson Dart or Cameron Ward. So not eye-popping stats, but what's he got? He's 6'4" and 220 pounds.
Yeah, so physically, absolutely right. He's got the frame, and I think that's the other thing. Just with players at any position, and I noted that. I don't know if we'll get to wide receivers, but one in particular. There are signing has become more of a component of predicted success and probability of success at the next level, and physically he certainly brings the frame and the athleticism and assuming between the years he's got some gray matter going on, then he probably can be molded. But as far as the game goes, Kirby Smart 1-5 against Bama the last 6 games. The asterisk to that, though, he was playing against the GOAT, his mentor in Saban. Taking nothing away from DeBear, but I think the Dogs roll into Tuscaloosa and they go home victorious to Athens. So I've got the Dogs in that one.
All right, Jerry, you have a prediction on that game, Alabama and the Bulldogs?
I have watched very little of either of those teams because in my heart I hate them both. I'm a hipster when it comes to college football. If you are highly successful year over year, I probably don't like you. I'm going to root for Georgia just because I don't know. I like Georgia, but
I think they've got better athletes this year. I mean, Bama's obviously very good, but I think Georgia's just got they've got the better athletes. And I think every team, particularly at the college level, there's always one game, right, that you're either on the knife's edge and you win barely, or you either lose barely or you get beat handily. And I think Georgia had that against Kentucky, and I don't see them stumbling twice or getting knocked over another time as they move through the season. So I think it'll be tough to beat them even at home in Tuscaloosa.
I'm going to go Georgia as well, and for the reason Andy mentioned, it's they've gotten that scare. Kentucky was the scare, and not that they would take Bama lightly, but they're going to be on high alert. They know that they're going to get everyone's best shot every single week, week in, week out. Well, we are going to talk wide receivers, and we're going to split it up. We're going to talk for a minute. We're going to take our final commercial break, and then we'll come back, talk more wide receivers and running backs and maybe tight ends. I mean, no one really likes tight ends because you think you've got really good ones like Trey McBride and Jerry's guy in the Lions, Sam Laporta, and then all of us. Kyle Pitts is never going to fire Jerry. I don't know how to break that to you, but that is the news I have of the night. But I want to talk wide receivers because these are the guys making all the money in the NFL right now. Andy, who is your favorite draft eligible? Now that's the caveat. Who is the redshirt sophomore, junior, senior wide receiver? Maybe he's not the best, but he's your favorite.
Yeah, I would probably go with. I've got it. There's a few. I would probably have to say McMillan all around. So Teddy McMillan out of Zona. You mentioned him earlier, Randy. But he had a really strong start. The first game of the season, I think he was 200 plus and 3 tutties. He's at 450 receiving and 4 touchdowns. So he slowed down a bit. But again, I go back to what we talked about earlier. Physically 6'5" and 212, right? So from a height standpoint, and put 10, 20 plus pounds on him, you're putting him in the Metcalf and Megatron category if you can beef him up. And whether or not he stays wide or you bring him closer into the line, who knows? But he would be, I think, just in terms of what he's shown. Now there are a ton of talented receivers, around the league and on, in all the conferences, but he's one that stands out to me. Travis Hunter, at Colorado, you were talking earlier about Sanders, and I was just, as we were kind of in the early part of the show, was just kind of looking through some of the notes, but it is a bit ironic, and people probably have already made the connection, and maybe I'm late to the game, so I'm slow to process these things, but he's very much like his head coach, right? So Neon played both sides of the ball, and I think you were, talked about earlier, Randy, of what potentially he, or if it was Shador you were talking about, maybe goes to the defensive side of the ball. But if Travis is largely a defensive player at the next level, but slotting him on the O side of the ball from time to time, in special teams too. But you probably got to put him in the conversation too, just pure freak athleticism.
Well, I do like Travis Hunter. And like I said, I mentioned it in the beginning of the show. I would recommend that he play. Not that he's going to ask me, but when he does, or if he does,
Of course he is. He's going to.
He's listening. It's fine, Travis. If
He's
you're
going to
listening,
ask Jerry.
he's going to ask Jerry. I say go cornerback. There's just not enough good ones. And I think at the NFL level, it will be easier for him to pick up some wide receiver concepts and be able to apply that to his pro game. Because I give him credit, he's playing like 98% of the snaps in college, but he's listed as 6'1", 185. That's not a big guy. I do have one question for Jerry, because Jerry, you know I bring this up all the time. I cannot pronounce this guy's first name. McMillan, the fella from Arizona, he's 6'5". Now, and I like the Megatron comparison. Is he going to be able to translate to the NFL? Because the wide receivers we see dominate right now are the guys that are 6'1", maybe 6'2", 210 pounds, the Justin Jeffersons, the Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, your boy Amon-Ra St. Brown. Malik Neighbors has completely taken over the NFL.
Let me just let you victory lap for a second. When you put him at wide receiver 4 as a rookie before he had played.
Oh, you mean on our ranking show?
I said you were high as giraffe nuts. I apologize. I was wrong.
The funny thing is our contemporaries in the industry, and I've mentioned this before, Jax Falcone, who hosts the Undroppables, which is found right here on Player Profiler, he's already got him as Dynasty wide receiver 1. And I think there might be some guys that have that potential, but we're going to break up the wide receiver talk for just a quick second. And I forgot to wear my FastDraft shirt.
Oh, the NFL season is underway, and if you drafted on FastDraft this summer, the Origins All-Rookie game, the Flex 4 game, check the live scoring, see where you are in the standings. You might be in line for a big payday. And no matter where you are in the world, you should have the FastDraft app, because there's a custom Dynasty mock tool that's free to everybody with super sharp ADPs, and we're rolling out DFS tournaments throughout the year, and the 2025 tournaments will go live before any of us realize, oh my God, the 2025 season is upon us. Download FastDraft, register, and you will be alerted as soon as these new contests are unleashed. Check it out on fastdraft.app.
There you go. And that one hits close to home. I helped with the FastDraft app, helped with the t-shirts, and it's a really cool thing. And it's free. It's free to download, and you can use it now to work on your Dynasty stuff. And then you'll be able to play a new version of Best Ball come, I don't know, February, Jerry? Does that work?
Yeah. Sounds about
All
right.
right. Now, before we hit that break, we were talking wide receivers. I'm going to butcher this poor guy's name, but Ibuka, Jerry, how'd I do?
Perfect. Absolutely
Oh,
perfect.
He's a guy getting a lot of buzz. I was familiar with him because is Ohio State wide receiver you? I mean, we go to Terry
without
McLaren.
question.
I mean, it's been
he's
crazy.
Marvin
listen.
Harrison Jr.
Marvin
they've
Harrison
just
Jr.
been. We can keep going back to Michael
JSN.
Thomas too. I mean, even guys that haven't been extremely successful in the league, like Curtis Samuel, were from there too. He's good. The problem is he's getting outshined right now by a kid that's 18 years old and Jeremiah Smith, who's just dropping his beanbag on everybody that he's played so far. And unfortunately, guess who the next victim of that is on Saturday? The Mean Green Killing Machine, about to get stomped in by the Buckeyes. I mean, I have one Devy league, and I have him on my roster, so I'm holding out hope that he can emerge something. But no, Ohio State is the absolute pinnacle of wide receiver talent. Brian Hartline was the wide receivers coach. Now he's the offensive coordinator. I wanted him to be Michigan State's head coach back when they hired Mel Tucker, just because he can just bring in talent. So I'm excited about them. As far as McMillan, though, Randy, you're concerned about his size. I see it. The problem is the dude is a freak. But also we've seen guys like Treylon Burks who are freaks too in college, and then it doesn't exactly translate well.
Yep. Yeah.
So my fear is always – sorry, Jerry.
No, I was just going to say – you can keep going on that. I was just also going to say that if Travis Hunter plays wide receiver in the league, I think he's my wide receiver one.
Wow,
he's the best player in college football right now.
Wow.
All right. Well, my only concern with the 6'5" guys is they just get so used to beating everybody with their height, and they're not always the best route runners. And they're to be good at that size, you got a Des Bryant. Now, every once in a while, if he can translate and be a Calvin Johnson, who is very versatile, as you know, as a Lions fan. Andy, last couple of wide receiver questions. Any thoughts on Egbuka or any other wide receivers you want to talk about before we switch over to everyone's favorite running backs?
The RBs. No, I mean, Mbuka is, he's been around. What is he, a junior? I think, or is he a senior?
So.
But
he's been around there forever.
Yeah, I mean, he's been around there a while and has been. He did. Obviously Harrison Jr. took a lot of the spotlight last year, but I think he'll translate to the next level. Two other guys. One is not eligible. 17-year-old kid down in Bama, Ryan Williams. If you guys have seen him or any tape on him, but unbelievable speed. He had Tutty against, I think it was USF, that went for distance and just lightning quick. And then the other guy that could be one of the most exciting guys to get to the next level, Zachariah Branch out of USC. Again, wide receiver, but special teams, I would put him up with potential to be to follow in the footsteps of Devin Hester. I mean, that guy is unbelievable on kick and punt returns. So I'd watch out for him too.
I like it. Jerry, any more wide receiver questions before we go to the running back position?
No. Let's get into the sexy stuff.
Yeah, because as we mentioned earlier, there are so few good running backs for fantasy. Now they're good in that we've not been given a ton of really good running backs over the last couple of years. And I think we're going to see more of a renaissance as it relates to the running back position. You're already seeing it with what teams are doing to teams like Dallas. You've seen the Kansas City Chiefs, and even though Isaiah Pacheco got hurt, which bums me out because you know how much I love Isaiah Pacheco, but we saw him bring in Indiana's own Carson Steele.
That's right.
Pounded the ball. Center Grove. And you know, you heard Mel Kiper the other day complaining about they should ban the too high safeties. No, I not only do I listen to Mel Kiper begrudgingly, but I listen to Mark Schlereth. And Mark Schlereth has the best comment about beating the too high. You get a running back and you just keep pounding the front seven in the teeth until they have no choice but to pull the safeties up.
Yeah.
So we mentioned Ashton Jeanty earlier in the show. Who else from the running back position, Andy, stands out for you this year?
Yeah, I mean, I can't not comment on Jeanty, but he's the real deal, man. Right. I mean, I think Jerry mentioned the game against Oregon early on, I think second game of the season, I think it was. And I think he was up near, I think it was almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, just annihilated him. And he's been that consistent ever since. He's averaging 195 a game, overall 9 touchdowns. Kid from Iowa, Caleb Johnson, another one to keep an eye on. He's leading in terms of stats, in terms of touchdowns. He's a little fewer yards per game than Jeanty. One that I think could be really exciting at the next level, and we'll make a bit of a comparison, but another SEC running back for the Razorbacks, but Jaquindon Jackson. It's a kid that's in the top 10 there, almost 500 yards on the ground, 8 tutties, but similar stature and frame as the one and only Derrick Henry. So he weighs in at about 6'2", 235, and Henry's at 6'3", 245. So again, at the next level, he could be, as you're talking about, Randy, that running back that the offenses use to pound up front and pull those deep guys back up. So those would be a couple names on my list, and I think there are a couple. I think I can't remember the young kid's name, the kid at Ohio State that is doing well, and then Khalil Mullings. I don't know if you guys watched the USC Michigan game. He ran for, I think it was 160 against the Trojans, and kid was a former linebacker, right? So he runs with force and runs with purpose, got good size. So not sure where he'll fare at the end of his career at Michigan, but he certainly looked impressive on Saturday. So those are just a few names I put out there.
I want to throw this to Jerry, but I was looking at the physical build of Jeanty. He's listed at 5'9", 215.
Yeah.
That'd be like trying to tackle a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
Just very, very difficult. Jerry, what are your thoughts on Jeanty and any of the other running backs that Andy mentioned?
Yeah, so you mentioned Khalil Mullings from Michigan. I was watching, so I could watch them lose. They did not. Khalil Mullings has been he's been true. He's been the best running back on that team. Donovan Edwards is on the cover of EA College Football 25. He has turned into a pumpkin. Khalil Mullings
it's the curse.
Yeah, it is the cover of the curse. No, he's looked good.
Yeah.
I would love to crap on a Wolverine. I can't. That kid legitimately is sort of the heart and soul of that team. Quinshon Judkins is the running back from Ohio State you were trying to think of. Yeah. He's been a star. He was a star at Mississippi. He's good now. I mean, that offense is out of this world. As far as Caleb Johnson from Iowa, he looks good too. I am in Iowa currently, and I have, we're always getting clobbered on Saturdays because all the Hawkeye fans show up, so I end up watching it. Kid has looked good. I don't know if he's going to be built for the league because he's sort of a late breakout guy, but looks good. I think my favorite running back is, and this is going to be wild because I'm going to name somebody from Rutgers, but Kyle Monungai runs hard. He reminds me of like Zach Moss back in his Utah days. He fights for every yard that he gets. It's a program that just spit out Isaiah Pacheco at us, so that they've got a good pedigree of coaching their guys up. I mean, Damian Martinez is good too. Oregon State last year, Miami now. He sort of runs like Zach Moss too while we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Well, so the drop of Damian Martinez came from the YouTube chat. So Pod Son brought up Damian Martinez, and look at that. You contribute, you get your guy on there. My question for Andy, and then Jerry, when he finishes, please chime in with your thoughts. You mentioned Judkins from Ohio State. Did Travion Henderson hurt himself by not declaring for the NFL draft last year? It wasn't a super good RB class. And then now this Judkins kid, I don't want to say he's taking his lunch money, but he's definitely not getting the shine that I remember seeing. Andy, what are your thoughts on Travion, and did he fumble? No pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a similar dynamic that Jerry mentioned with Edwards and Mullings at Michigan, right? Hindsight's 2020, man. Like a buddy of my eldest son was a top-rated pitcher in high school and had the opportunity to get drafted. I think he was projected first round, $3.5 million, $4 million signing, or a full ride to a top SEC school. And he chose to go to the SEC school. Spent 2 years on the IR with hammy injuries and Tommy John surgery, and ended up entering himself for the draft this year. Got picked up, I think, by the Cardinals. So again, it's hindsight's 2020. Look back, should he have gone to the draft out of high school? Maybe he should have. So I think it's hard to say. I mean, I think if you look at the facts now and what's going on, your answer would probably be yes. He probably should have left last year, right, and taken the paycheck and gone to the league. But, there's a lot of factors for these kids and their families when they make these decisions. And, you gotta live with those. So
I will say that he probably made more money for this 1 year in NIL money at Ohio State than he would have as a second or third round NFL,
good point.
NFL pick. So maybe going back was actually the smart move.
Yeah.
He's splitting the carries and splitting the time with Judkins, which keeps the miles on his tires a little bit lower. It might wind up looking like a real savant move as we get further on.
Yeah.
Jerry, please, your thoughts.
No, he's been efficient still, but yes, he has lost a majority of the workload to Judkins, but also they haven't really needed him. He's sort of your between the tackles guy there, and they've been absolutely just hammering people over the head. So they go against Iowa, I think, next week after the Michigan State game. Yeah. So we'll at least get to see him against a competent offense or a competent defense.
Yeah.
And if they can do well, love to see it. He's a guy, Randy, that I think we're going to be talking about in the second round, early second round rookie picks that you're just going to love to just snag, because he's a guy that's going to have efficiency, have production at a high profile university, and people are just not going to fall in love with him. And I think that's exactly the type of guy that you and I go for.
And Jerry, throw me an NFL comp to this
for
guy.
Travion. I don't really have one. Honestly, he's like a poor man's J.K. Dobbins, and I know that doesn't do anything for you because you don't like J.K. Dobbins, but he's sort of similar in that aspect. Like, he's got a well-rounded game. He's got good size. As a true freshman, he took that job and he was awesome.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. But he's had some injuries. So, and then Judkins came in, which was wild that he came in with Travion Henderson there in the first place. But wanted the ring, wanted the money.
Hey, I don't blame him for going for the money. And I've heard they're the odds-on favorite to win the Natty. So completely good with that. We mentioned earlier the running back position kind of thriving again after a low period. Andy, I'm not putting you on the spot because we're going to bring you back in February and you'll get a chance to modify this take. But how many running backs of the draft eligible, whether it's Genty, they have Ollie Gordon listed, Judkins, Henderson, Mullings, out of all those guys that are draft eligible, 1, 2, none, 3, how many guys do you think have the potential to be first rounders?
We're early in the season, right? But I'm going to say probably 1. I'd be surprised if it was more than 1, right? Possibly 2, but I just think in general, you've got to have, and I think of all those that we talked about, from a boosting, their stock, if Genty continues, he will be by far, the one that started in a place that he may not even been in the conversation about getting drafted, and whether or not he'd be a first rounder, I don't know, but I'd be surprised if it was more than 2. I'd probably land on 1.
All right, well, good. We'll bring it back to gambling for a minute. We'll let Jerry over under 1.5 running backs in the first round of the 2025 NFL draft.
I'll take the under.
All right. We will not let you modify your take. You are currently locked into one, regardless of what happens. All right. Well, we're going to spend a little time, just a little, and then we're going to wrap up because I want to give Andy one more chance to talk about their show. Tight ends, that good people, bad tweets, elite drafters. He says there's one elite tight end option. Jerry, who do you think that is? Who's it have to be?
If it was me, I would say it's Colston Loveland from Michigan.
Yeah.
He's the
guy,
highest rated.
Okay.
Really?
He was good for them last year. He's been a major part of the offense this year. He didn't play against USC, which is even more wild that they won that game without him. He's good. Iowa's got a guy too. I think it's Lachey. I don't know how good he is, but if you're a tight end and you're the starting tight end and you play at Iowa, I'm just going to draft you and I don't care. Yeah. Because more often than not, I'm going to benefit. And I know Randy mocked people earlier for scouting the helmet. When it comes to tight ends, I'm scouting that helmet. I don't care.
Absolutely.
If it's got that black and yellow Hawkeye on it, that tight end is mine.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why you don't give this guy more credit, Randy. I mean, I'm all in. That's exactly where I was going. Tight end, you man.
Listen, I'm
gotta go with Lachey out of Iowa.
Jerry will tell you I'm a huge George Kittle guy, and then you got Hawkinson. I don't think Noah Fant ever really lived up to the hype.
Yeah. He's been fine though. Yeah,
he's been okay. He's been a better NFL player than he has been a fantasy option. Is that fair? Is that fair to say?
True.
And then your boy Sam Laporta. So it's no, and I forgot to warn Andy. Jerry is a lowly Lions fan, and for the first 6.5 years of this podcast, I was allowed to beat him down mercilessly. Because when we started, the Colts still had Andrew Luck, and they were good, and they were going to AFC Championship games against the
tide has turned, my friend.
And we were the Lions.
And then we've turned into the Dolphins post Dan Marino. But guys, that is what we're calling our way too early look at college prospects going into this coming year's draft. We're definitely going to have Andy, and when Mark has more time, we're going to bring Mark back on for a full show. And as you guys know, in the off season, we shift back to Sunday nights. We won't be locked into the 1 hour because remember, before us, if you're watching live on YouTube, go back and watch Tara, Dear Miss Fantasy. Watch that. And then after us, you got Bradley Stalder, Man versus Machine. So stick around at the end of this show. But Andy, I wanted to give you the last 5 to 7 minutes here to tell us more about your podcast and anything you would want us to know.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Thanks, Jerry. Again, appreciate you having us on. Saturday Sensei, weekly podcast, really talking about just solely focused on college football, the love of the game. And I think what Mark and I try to bring is a perspective from a fan standpoint, right? So yeah, we do quote stats. We look them up because we love the game. And I find data and numbers interesting. And sometimes it doesn't always play out on the field, but I think we're giving folks and having conversations that I suspect a lot of people are having with their buddies, right? Or other people that they're sitting around on Saturdays watching games with and probably saying the same stuff. We just decided to take the next step and put it on the interweb and hopefully it's entertaining for folks. So Saturday Sensei, again, drops weekly. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, all the names that broadcast. So certainly tune in, catch an episode, and if you like what you hear, subscribe, pass it on, and we hope you get as much entertainment and satisfaction out of the roughly hour that we spend that Mark and I do. So again, we appreciate you having us on.
No, definitely, because it helps us. Because it's an addition to. Right. You said you guys drop on Wednesday, right? You drop on Wednesday, sometimes Tuesday, but most of the time Wednesday.
Yep.
And it's a great companion piece because you listen to the Saturday Sensei, and then when it starts getting closer to rookie season, you're like, oh yeah, I'm already familiar with this name. Oh yeah, I've heard a lot about so-and-so. I've heard a lot about him. And I found that listening to college podcasts, listening about players, I'm more familiar with who they are, but I'm also less likely to get caught up in the hype around certain guys. Yeah. It's kind of what has kept me from getting burned a lot in Dynasty is that I'm already familiar with them. So I'm like, if you focus only on the NFL and you don't watch a lot of college, and then all of a sudden you get to the college season, these guys are great. You have no idea who they're all shiny and new. It's Christmas morning. And then you realize, just like Christmas morning, there's only one or two things you ever actually really enjoy. So I'll leave it at that.
Don't tell your wife that, Randy.
No, well, I don't get anything for Christmas. I'm a grown up. If I see something, if I see something I like, I just buy it.
Yeah.
Jerry, you have anything for Andy or anything before we get out of here?
Nope. I appreciate you coming on, Randy. I need you to stop bringing on people that look like they can punch through my face. I need more scrawny guys in here like me, man.
Well,
you guys, you're just emasculating me.
Me and Andy enjoy weights, and come to find out, Andy also enjoys jujitsu.
Yeah, a little rolling. Yeah, I'm lucky I healed up, man. I caught a knee to the lip about a week and a half ago, and I came into the office on Monday, and people wonder if I'd been in a bar fight over the weekend. Yeah,
that's the best part. People look at like people who know. It's like, oh yeah, I understand. Other people that they look at you like it's Fight Club. But guys,
I got one question for you guys, real quick.
Yes, please.
30 seconds. Top fantasy player for the year. I know we're we're 3 weeks in, but who do you guys have? Who's gonna be the high?
Who's gonna finish the high? Jerry?
Who's gonna be the top?
I'm gonna say Justin Jefferson. He's already well on his way.
Wow. Okay.
I'm gonna cheat
with Randy's man, Sammy D.
I'm a shameless Sam Darnold fan. I'm going to cheat because there's so much super flex. So I'm going to say the number one quarterback is going to continue to be Josh Allen. But I think you're going to see Dallas get back on track, and I think CD Lamb.
CD
just because there's such an absence of target competition there. Jake Ferguson's been banged up. Jalen Tolbert not looked too bad. Brandon Cooks, the grizzled veteran, always chipping in. But at the end of the day, it's the CD Lamb show.
CD's got to get paid, man. CD's got to get paid with targets.
Yeah, and speaking of show, that's the end of ours. But guys, we don't ask for a lot, and it's free. It's the simplest thing you could do. Subscribe to Player Profiler, but go over to Saturday Sensei. Again, if you're listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube, it'll be linked in the show description at the tippy top, like above our link. So you just got to go in, hit subscribe, check them out, listen to some episodes. They would appreciate it, and we would appreciate it. Andy, I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, anytime, man.
Hey, well, you're already committed. You are getting a return voyage sometime in like February, March, as we start getting rookie hype. We'll get you back on. It's a great companion piece to the Dynasty WarZone. Jerry, you have anything?
Nope. The boys, the Tigers are fighting for a playoff spot for the first time in like 8 years. I am a fair weather baseball fan, as Randy is aware, but it is that time of the year where I actually watch them.
You can't beat October baseball, guys. Well, all right. We'll be back next week. We'll get back into the Dynasty talk. We appreciate Andy and Mark. Check out the Saturday Sensei. Check out Dynasty WarZone Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. That's really all we got. We'll be back next week. We'll do it again. Thanks, guys.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.